So let's tackle that question or those series of questions. What makes a hero? Heroes have honor and courage that define heroism. They are aristocratic warriors who consider greatness in battle to be the highest virtue somebody can attain. They are people of the past who had maybe some type of superhuman abilities a little bit. They are seen as being descended from gods themselves, and the Greeks would see themselves as inheritors of that tradition as well. The best example probably isn't Odysseus. It's probably Achilles, who's the great hero of the Iliad. He is the son of a sea goddess. Though these heroes are descended from gods or goddesses having great power, they're mortal, which defines them in contrast to gods, kind of like Gilgamesh. Remember, 2/3 God and 1/3 man. So that means that inherently mortality is a dominant theme in Greek epics. What humans go through, all of their ideals, being with their back against the wall and overcoming it, that defines a heroic life. And the certainty that we are going to die is what separates us from animals who are unaware of their own fate. And knowing that we're going to die makes us better and separate from animals, but the fact that we're going to die makes us different than God. So humans occupy this very particular place on our planet, according to the ancient Greeks. Heroes' traits. If we continue with Achilles, and I know that you haven't gone through the Iliad, but Achilles, for example, if you've ever seen Troy or read any of the Iliad, chooses a really violent death in order to win glory that is going to live beyond his lifetime so that he can be remembered rather than hide and be safe. He doesn't compromise his values, not even for the needs of dear friends. But he's also flawed. He lets friends take his place in battle and they die on his behalf. He becomes tormented by that fact. So even heroes have flaws, kind of like, again, I've mentioned this before, George Washington and chopping down a cherry tree. It's what you do afterwards that's important and that teaches a lesson to other little kids. Odysseus is obviously the hero of the Odyssey. And one thing that's worth considering about these epics is that the very first word in the poem is supposed to tell you what the entire poem is about. So the Odyssey, which is maybe 100,000 words all in, the first word is home, right? And what that means is that all of this is about Odysseus' love for Greece and his homeland and how he wants to get there. His travels, Odysseus' travels, are meant to represent the trials and tribulations of an individual human's life. So what type of traits does he display that make him human and heroic? He accepts fate, what the ancient Greeks would have called moria, actually. The idea that fate and destiny govern the world. So, for example, when Odysseus and his men kind of draw lots to do things throughout the Odyssey, the gods are deciding what happens, not them. He's also really smart and witty. Think about how he outwits the Cyclops. He tricks him. You might think trickery is bad, deception is bad. For the ancient Greeks, apparently it shows wit and it shows a strong mind. Even though he's pissed off at some of the gods, he still respects them. He still sacrifices to Zeus, despite how Zeus feels about him. He's also foolish, right? Think about the very end. How does the blind Polyphemus almost sink the entire ship? By Odysseus yelling at him. And not only that, after having tricked him, by saying what his name actually is. So, thinking about it in this way, these traits are particularly important. You have for your reading an excerpt about Odysseus elsewhere, when he comes in contact with the king Alancus. I always mispronounce it, Alanicus, I believe. What I would love you to think about as you go through there is, what are the traits that make Odysseus awesome when he comes in contact with that king? What are the things that other Greeks should emulate? What type of values would be enshrined and make them Greek? Okay, so last slide of this lecture. It's going to flow pretty seamlessly into the next one, so if you want to take a break, take a break. If you want to jump right in, go ahead. Next lecture is going to be slightly longer, so keep that in mind as you prepare yourself. But as always, you can take breaks whenever you want. That's the beauty of doing this asynchronously.